Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
How do you tell if a ghost is what it claims to be? Can you talk to extraterrestrials over Ouija boards? What kind of monster has 6 legs?
Hey there, and welcome to the 469th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Ben, and those many and varied questions came from my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad. So this evening, usually if we open up with random questions that seemingly have nothing to do with each other, that means we have an open line show tonight. And we also invite you to call in to talk about any of the emails that we're going to read, or you can present your own questions and comments. And the numbers this evening are 401-766-1240 locally. Again, that's 401-766-1240 locally. And 800-449-1240 from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada.
So we probably won't answer any of the questions above because we are inundated with emails having to do with this new movie, The Conjuring, mainly because Ben and I were in the featurette that went with the movie, so a lot of people had some pungent comments on that and some even more pungent questions. So we tried to pick we dealt with that last night in our CBS edition, and we're going to try to deal with some of the more local questions on this edition of the show, because obviously that's probably of more interest to our local audience. So anyway, here's one from Carrie in Douglas, Massachusetts, right in our listening area.
Alrighty, so Carrie writes to us. Hi guys, it was really cool to see you guys in the Conjuring video. Have you ever had cases like that? And where in Harrisville did that happen?
Well, I have to tell you that I never heard of this case until the producer came to us and wanted us to do this.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either.
And I did work with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are featured in the film, but I started about a year. This supposedly occurred in 1971. I didn't start working with them until really about late 1972. And I can't remember them ever mentioning this. Doesn't mean they didn't, but because it's 40 years ago, but I just didn't remember. I also was surprised to find out that it was in Harrisville. The author of the book upon which the movie is based supposedly lived in the house, and this is what happened to her family, she says. And she says, I've heard a report that she said that was rather accurate. And what I hope to do is we hope to get her on the show and ask her some questions about this. But I was not involved with it. I don't know really anything about it. I haven't seen the movie yet, but we're in the video, and we were talking about the issue of something that will come up in other questions.
I think eventually we'll get around to seeing it. It's come out at a weird time of the month.
Yeah.
So we haven't really gotten a chance to get around to seeing it, but I've heard mixed things about it so far.
Yeah, well, and it's gotten some pretty good reviews. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's the usual Hollywood approach, I'm sure, and it's not
nothing really
exactly
different,
like the Discovery Channel, right? Yeah, no, probably. I don't know. We'll see. But if people are entertained by it, and that's what the purpose was.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's entertainment. It's not meant to be like serious. As I mentioned last night in CBS, I mean, just because it says it's based on a true story, I mean, it could be extremely loosely based. I mean, it could be in the same town, maybe. Or someone shares the same name as somebody else that was actually there, or maybe there was a certain car that was there. Yeah. Anything as shallow as that could make it like, oh well, there were people there, or this actually happened at this place, but it didn't really happen, or maybe it did, and we don't know, or maybe it's more blown up in the movie.
Well, that would be a shock, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And Carrie also asks, have you ever had cases like that? And I mean, Ben and I together.
Well, first we need to see the movie.
Really haven't. Well, no, I mean, I know the usual MO on these things. Probably the most dramatic cases I've had have had to do with poltergeists and also possession cases in my salad days when I was working with a priest at two different priests at 2 different psychiatric hospitals as a seminary student and as a graduate student in psychology. And but you don't have weird figures appearing behind you and doing strange things, but you do have people being thrown across rooms. I had a physical altercation, ironically, on a case I was working on with the Warrens in 1974 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. We've talked about it many times on the show. It's in my book, Faces at the Window, and you can read about it there. But I have had physical altercations with these things, and that's why I really had the impression early on that there was a lot more to this than the common, I suppose, folklore would have us believe. I mean, all the people in the video, except us, you could see sort of there was a psychic from New York, and there was some other paranormal investigator whom I've heard of, but whom we don't know, who sort of seemed to stick with this is all about dead people thing, and angry dead people and all this. And I never really bought that.
Well, people dig the creepy stuff. I mean,
they do, and that's the creepy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like stuff. Because, as you know, I mean, certain things happen with your body chemistry where we like getting scared because it releases endorphins.
That's right.
And such. People also like feeling stressed, which is weird, because apparently that releases dopamine, which makes you happy. Except it doesn't make you happy. It's weird. It doesn't make much sense. Neurology is a very strange thing.
But the thing that really gets me, Ben, is that the things we come in contact with and the things that are experienced in the multiverse approach rather than the spiritualist approach are so much more bizarre and stimulating and weird and mind-expanding than anything you're going to find in the spiritual approach. Well,
think of it this way. The normal moviegoer, it's more credible to think it's dead people than it is.
Well, people can grasp that because they don't know what else, how else to interpret.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been told this stuff all your life, like, oh, it's dead people. I mean, it's easier to accept. Oh, well, there's a dead person haunting this house. But if you say, oh, well, this person's actually alive in a parallel universe or whatever that just happens to be going through their daily life. I try to explain that to people all the time, and they just can't seem to get it. Like, oh, so this spirit is just doing whatever it normally does. Like, no, it's
not a spirit.
Not a spirit.
It's the actual person.
It's very.
But when they do get it,
a
lot of times at lectures, you see the light comes into the eyes. They say, "Wow, I've never understood this until I thought of it this way." We had people. Our biggest case right now in Connecticut was we were contacted by someone who read footsteps in the attic and said, this is the only approach that really answers what's going on here.
Yeah.
And people, even Lorraine Warren, who was a dear friend of mine for a number of years, they were like a second family to me in the 70s. She would say, you run into things that, and all these people will say they run into things that they can't explain them, they can't, they've had some awful experiences. Well, yeah, you have awful experiences, but when you understand it, from the point of view of the way I think the way we approach it, if I may say that, then it becomes clear, and it opens up whole new worlds about it, and you begin to understand what it really is. If you just assume that it's somebody who's dead, you're limiting yourself. Anyway, here's another one. This is this is not local. It's from Fairmont, West Virginia, but it's Mark in Fairmont, West Virginia, and Mark has a question.
Well, it's not super duper far away, but
it's not our local listening area.
No. Well, Mark writes to us, "Hey, Paul and Ben, I saw that Warner Brothers video with you guys talking about the Devil's Hour. What did you say about it that they edited out?"
Quite a bit, Mark. I must tell you.
We talked for a good 45 minutes each.
Well, we did, and we were both interviewed at length, and we filmed for that for a day and a half, and. But naturally, obviously, and they were great people to work with.
They were very, very nice,
from New York, and they came up. They were two great guys.
Oh yeah.
And it was a matter of time, of course. It was only a 3.5-minute featurette, and they had to get the other people in. So we talked a lot. I don't know about what you said because they wouldn't let me sit down on your interview.
Well, I basically said probably the exact same thing you said, which was. I mentioned a lot of stuff about the multiverse, and I was like, well, I mean, you have boundaries between worlds thinning, so yeah, weird stuff's going to happen, and you're probably going to notice it, that kind of stuff. I mean, I was sort of led into answering that it was like a more active paranormal time of day.
Well, yeah, because that was the point of the thing.
That was the whole. So I didn't want to just completely ignore that and be like, yeah, well, but I offered explanations like, well, I mean, it's probably the connotation of the time of day, like how people tend to notice more stuff at that time of day because, not a lot of people are up at 3 in the morning unless it's like you and me or maybe most of our listeners or we don't know.
Or we're on coast to coast there.
Or if we're on coast to coast. Yeah, I mean, I offered like reasonable explanations. I mean, or at least what I think are reasonable for why it seems like it's a more active time of day than others.
Well, I have. Well, this is the thing. Some people have written in and said they don't. Well, why is it more active than any other time? I have run into that. I have run into cases where things are more active at that time of day, and it is the name of the featurette is The Devil's Hour, and it is available on YouTube or the Warner Brothers site and a bunch of other things. And I have found that is the case, and as I say in the video, why is that the case? Well, I went into, they also edited this out. No, naturally, there wasn't any time. I was talking about the telluric current. It's an electrical current that's well known to science, has been since the middle of the 19th century, and it runs over the surface of the Earth, and it runs over the water as well, a little bit underneath, and it follows the sun. So in other words, as the Earth turns, the telluric current will wherever the sun is, that's where it'll go. And to talk about this thing just before the dawn, the sun usually comes up in the summer around 4:30.
Yeah.
So around 3, the telluric current is tending toward the sun. And so, okay, what's this got to do with anything? Well, the electrical fields this thing can influence and create has a lot to do with funny things having to do with space and time. It, as Ben just said, can thin the world boundaries. And these boundaries between these parallel worlds where all things are possible, and that multiversal beings, we all are really, but things like parasites that we talk about, or demons in folklore, I mean, they're not theologically what folklore says they are. They're life forms that feed upon, as we've found for many years, feed upon the negative energy from people. And when you got stuff going on that's negative, and you have the right ducks lined up, electromagnetic energy, geotechnical factors, you can get parasite activity. And this can happen particularly at that time of day, and I've really found that. So that's among the things that we talked about that we didn't get to say in the video because it was edited. But that, and it had to be, again, because, again, this is for entertainment.
I also brought up the fact that, faith and belief are very, very powerful tools.
They left that in.
Oh, they did?
Ben won't watch the video because he hates to see himself on TV. So.
Oh, yeah. So, good. Yeah, see, they left that in. There
I
we
don't
go.
mind, since I lost weight, I don't mind so much seeing myself.
Me?
But it's, you should watch it. It's beautifully photographed, and it's well edited.
Fine.
Anyway.
I'll watch it.
All right. So, in any case, this is from, here's someone local, Lori in Harrisville.
Alrighty, so Lori writes to us, "Hi guys, I love your show. I look forward to every Monday when I can listen to it on the way home from work. It was even cooler to go see The Conjuring this weekend and find out it happened in Harrisville. Then to see you guys in the video. Paul, was the movie accurate? The author says it is, and she lived in the house. You said you worked with the Warrens at the time. Were you involved with the case? Keep up the great work, guys." Well, we shall
thank
try.
you, Lori. We kind of answered that already, and I would not. I don't know where the house is. As I say, one would think that a case that dramatic would have been mentioned to me, and as I say, I just don't have any recollection.
Well, and if we did mention it, if we did know where it was, we probably wouldn't mention where it is.
Absolutely not.
Because then there'd be a hail of people descending upon the house.
Yeah, we don't even mention the town.
No.
But I don't know where this is anyway, so it's academic. But
I just said Harrisville, I guess.
Yeah, so I just don't understand what... it's funny, one of the charities we support is Builders Helping Heroes and Homes for Our Troops, which is building a home in Harrisville for a wounded Marine veteran. And I've been out there lately for that, but I have no idea where this farmhouse might be. And again, this is entertainment, it's not science, and you cannot expect complete accuracy. Well, some things I could say about other cases I was involved with, but I won't.
Well, where there's money to be made...
Well, that's it. That's what it's about.
It's all about money. Yeah. That's pretty much
do not approach this film as if it's looking for accuracy.
Yes.
It's entertainment, and it's just... although we had somebody write yesterday, we read it last night, that said that the movie was almost enough to get him to give up ghost hunting.
I thought it said it did get him to give up ghost hunting.
Oh, good. I hope he does, because it's a stupid thing to do.
There we go. Done.
Anyway, okay.
So if that was the goal, it was fair. It was
accomplished. Here's one from Cumberland. All right. California ones are mixed up in here. This is actually no. This is I guess not relevant. Let's just get this one done. This is from Dr. Steve in just says California. Anybody with a doctor in front of their name doesn't dare say where, and with any specificity where they're from.
Oh wait, I think he's written to us a few times.
Maybe. Yeah.
Hey, Paul and Ben, longtime listener and admirer of your work. You have changed my perspective on the paranormal completely. That's why I was surprised to see you in the online documentary about this Conjuring film.
Uh-oh.
Even though you were the most intelligent of those interviewed, please tell me you haven't, quote, sold out, unquote, to, quote, feral ghost hunters, unquote.
No, we have not sold out to the feral ghost hunters. Ben, you want to take it from there?
Well, I mean, it was fun to make. I mean, they asked us if we wanted to do it. I mean, why not? I mean, you worked with the Warrens' dad, so I mean, it's sort of. And I guess
they didn't pay us, which kind of surprised me.
No, well, I mean, it was fun to do. I didn't know who else was going to be in it. I knew little to nothing about what this thing was. I didn't even know there was.
Nor did I.
I didn't even know that there was a movie coming out called The Conjuring until literally 2 days before we started filming, when I saw a commercial for it at approximately 1 in the morning, and. So I was like, oh, wow, so that's what this is, because I didn't hear anybody talking about it, and then all of a sudden, my girlfriend's mom brings it up, and then I start seeing commercials all over the place.
Mm-hmm. And they really did their, job publicizing the thing. So.
Oh, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to go see it, and it was... So I didn't even know what this was about. I was just like, oh, they wanted to come talk to us. I was like, okay, sure, I'm okay with that. I mean, maybe we can get a little publicity, not publicity, that's not the right word. Get our message out there a little bit, and.
Well, that was the rationale too. Was maybe somebody will see this little featurette, which the producer wrote to us and said it had 44,000 hits in 2 days just on YouTube, and it was all over the place. So that was good. Somebody might see us, look us up. Get to our website,
we can have more listeners.
and read some of the articles and say, hey, here's a whole different perspective on this. And we're not out there. This is we're not preaching a gospel here.
No,
it's just I think that people can. We're excited about this. I know people don't care what we're excited about, but
not at all.
But we're very we're amazed at what the multiverse approach can do.
Well, yeah, I mean, we just wanted to offer a different perspective.
We're offered as an alternative.
I mean, because I feel like it would just get boring hearing say, oh, well, it's dead people, and they're angry about things they didn't complete in life, and it's like...
You know what strikes me about that, Ben? I was just thinking about this before. Was, you have a lot of people who get older, and being one who's getting older, I'm thinking more about this, they lose their memory.
Right.
And I have a theory about why that happens. But there are problems in the brain, or maybe not. They just get dementia might approach, or confabulation, things of this kind. They have memories of things that never happened, but of course somewhere in the multiverse they did happen. Maybe their mind's just expanding to take in the other lives they're living in parallel to this one. So the question is, if a ghost is a spirit, doesn't have a brain, how can it remember anything, whether it's mad or not, and all this business? But that's all things that I broke.
Memory is non-local.
Well, it is non-local, yeah. But I mean, how could they have a specific memory of being a specific person? Didn't know they died. That's a big slogan. Oh, they didn't know they died, and all this business. When now you see people who are still with us, so to speak, who are losing memories and changing memories and things like this, and can't quite remember what.
Oh yeah,
but that doesn't. I don't. Maybe that's just a thought.
I'm 21 years old and I can't even remember what I had for breakfast.
That's because you're busy.
Yeah.
I hope.
No, I have early onset dementia.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we are not selling out, Dr. Steve. Please don't worry about that.
No, right. Far from it.
Yes. This is from Helen in Cumberland, Rhode Island, right in our local listening area.
Alrighty. So Helen writes to us, hi, Paul and Ben. I listen to your shows when I can, and you don't seem to believe in ghosts the way others do. I saw the Conjuring movie, and I want to ask if that stuff really happens. They seem to mix up earthbound spirits with what you call parasites. Can they be the same thing? Should we fear the ghosts of people who were angry? This what we were just talking about?
Well, it is, but it is a rather good question, because, these are... I was not having seen the movie, I don't know, but really dramatic, weird things can happen. As I say, I've seen people thrown across the room, and this Bridgeport house, as I mentioned many times on the air, there was the Warrens had gone off to do some kind of interview, and I was in the house alone not alone, but with the family, which was a middle-aged couple and the young girl, a neighbor, and a reporter, whom, if I were in charge, never would have been there. But these 4 entities came out of the kitchen. One came up to me, and this is where I learned the hard way. You don't get angry at these things. Because I knew it was after the child, and I got angry, and it just got stronger. And so, in a way, it kind of threw us out of the house, because I pulled everybody out of the house, because the energy was just too much. I mean, I pushed against it. I felt physical resistance. I felt a physical body, although I couldn't see it very clearly. And it pushed back, and I've always said it, I even felt a skeletal structure. It got around me, threw the little girl across the room, and that's when I said, this is enough. Out we went. And these are the days before cell phones and all this, so I had to run next door to call call the Warrens and ask them to come back in. Anyway, it was a big mess. But yeah, I have seen things like that. I've had things thrown at me. There are all sorts of physical things that occur. But, I mean, as far as because, you remember in the movie, they might set this up. If they were to set up the Bridgeport case with the spooky music and the shots just as things were happening, I mean, you'd probably get the same effect you would in a film like The Conjuring.
See, I picture, like, the parasites being, like, the parasites from, or the parasites, the ghosts from, Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Well, they're not very friendly.
No. I mean, they weren't very friendly in the movie either. Casper's annoying
in that
brothers.
Movie.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Where they plan these things to happen, and they just are just goofy about it, and I don't know. I just picture it like that, and then they just laugh at us being scared.
Well, I suppose some of the lower ones might do. I mean, they're very, very interesting creatures to study. I've had opportunities to do that, and including Harrisville, Pasco particularly. These are all parts of Burrillville, Rhode Island. For those of you who are not from the area, Rhode Island is 39 cities and towns, but it's really 230 odd villages because people associate with their villages. But Harrisville is one village, Pasco is another village in the town of Burrillville. Anyway, that whole area seems to be somewhat active, particularly Pasco. I don't know. It has to do with the geology of the place to some degree. But in any case, I had a case in Pasco one time. This is before you were only 5 years old. You weren't involved. But there was an entity that was picking on this particular woman in the house, and you had a standard scenario where the woman was unemployed, was always in the house, brooding all the time. The thing was preying on that, and it convinced her that it was a lover from a former life. She was even writing poetry to it. And this had a happy ending. I told her that's not what it is. It's a parasite, and it was very. She ended up marrying someone who was a Native American shaman or elder, which was not a bad idea in this case because he knew how to deal with it. And this is not the case you're thinking.
No. I know it's a different case. I know.
Burrillville's full of all these wonderful parasites.
I've grown up hearing your talks like 200,000
Oh, that's right.
times. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, 200,000.
Oh, it was 200.
Right. But in any case, these entities, when you're in their presence, and I'm thinking of this Bridgeport house particularly, they don't feel like the presence of any other human. And how we feel presences, I think, is because the bioelectric field around our bodies will contact theirs. And that's how you know somebody's watching you and all this business. But they felt very sterile. They felt lifeless, and yet alive. So in a way, one thinks back to the undead.
I was just going to say, like zombies?
Yeah, no, the vampires.
I was making a joke.
Well, the really ancient concepts, like from the ancient Middle East and ancient China, of life-sucking ghosts.
Ah, yes.
They knew that they were feeding upon people, and yet they seemed lifeless. From our perspective and our point of view. So
how we get so stupid?
Well, we educated ourselves out of our instincts.
Yeah, makes sense.
And our traditions.
With the so-called enlightenment.
Yeah, so that didn't help. But anyway, they are very, very strange creatures. As I've said many times, I've personally identified about 9 different species of the things. I think that's pretty much accurate, from extremely intelligent ones and very calculating ones, all the way down to very lower two-dimensional things that act like children, almost.
So back
spoiled children.
Yeah, so back to the question. No.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
So essentially, no, we haven't dealt with anything like Hollywood-sized, but the truth is far more creepy than than just simply being scared by.
Well, that's what we always say. Explaining the paranormal is not the problem. It's dealing with the explanations.
I mean, it's way creepier when it happens in real life. But there's a quote I learned in my media history course where media is better than real life. So, or it's more real than the real thing, or whatever, something to that effect. I think it was from a song by I don't remember. I can't quite recall right now. But we do have, we're almost coming up on a break here, Sue.
Okay, well, let's take our break, and we'll come back with another letter, this one from Bellingham.
Alrighty. So listen to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, and we will be right back with our emails. Oh, sorry, kind of had your mic off on that.
Just giving a station idea. I know you don't have to do that at the bottom, we always do.
Well, you should. Well, yeah, so you're listening to 1240 AM WOON right here in Woonsocket.
Called Out, one of Southern Gospel's favorite quartets, will be in concert at Woodlawn Baptist Church in Pawtucket, Friday, July 26th at 6:30 p.m. Called Out concerts include the old hymns and the new songs of today. Their testimony in song reaches the lost and encourages and lifts up God's children. Come hear the Called Out Quartet in concert Friday, July 26th at Woodlawn Baptist Church, 337 Lonsdale Avenue, Pawtucket. A free will offering will be received. For more information, call 724-6390. That's 724-6390.
You can depend on us for public service. ON Radio. ON Radio. ON Worldwide.
Hi, this is Don Brunell inviting you to join me for ON Midday, weekdays from noon to 2, right here on ON 1240 Radio. We've got Gold Cuts, guests, and our daily super quiz. The Midday Show, right here on ON, local radio at its best.
ON Radio. ON Worldwide.
Oh, welcome back to Behind the Paranormal, and we're going to remind you about two of the charities we have adopted. You can find all of them at BehindTheParanormal.com, our website, or NewEnglandGhosts.com, our main website. One is USA Cares. USA Cares provides financial and advocacy assistance to post-9/11 active duty U.S. military veterans, service personnel, and their families. And they assist all branches of the service, all ranks and components, and treat all with privacy and dignity and appreciation for their service and sacrifice. So they, in other words, if someone in this group is short of their mortgage payment for a month, out goes a check from USA Cares. And there is also a donation page. And we are trying to get a chapter going here in Rhode Island, so please let us know about that. BehindTheParanormal.com, Paul at BehindTheParanormal.com, or 401-527-5345. USACares.org. Also, Canadian Veterans Advocacy. That's a marvelous group founded by Michael Blaze up there in Ontario, and he has what this group does is advocate for the causes of veterans in Canada. And as you know, the Canadian forces have been with us shoulder to shoulder in the War on Terror from the beginning. So CanadianVeteransAdvocacy.org. Check that out as well. Okay, and we are going to start another letter here, but I did want to tell you first that Ben and I are beginning to accept bookings for our fall speaking programs. Now, of course, I suppose twice a week we speak on the radio, but we'd like to know, too, just what you'd like to hear in our future programs. We speak a lot of
I meant to talk about that at the end of the show.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said after the break.
No. I said I wanted to talk about it during the break. Okay,
we'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah, so we'll get more into that at the end, but we introduced the idea that we were going to change up the program a little bit, but hey, why not ask people in the local area what they want to hear from us?
Exactly. Okay, so here's one from Bill in Bellingham, Massachusetts, right in our local listening area, and Bill wants to know about the ghost syndrome. Hey guys, it was good to see you in the featurette that goes with The Conjuring. You came across as the most intelligent people interviewed, but I have a feeling they cut a lot out. One term that Lorraine Warren used caught my ear, the ghost syndrome. I knew that the Warrens stuck to the old interpretation of ghosts and that you do not. But what is this ghost syndrome? It sounds interesting. What is it, and do you believe in it? Well, I don't know if I remember. I remember Lorraine using that term once or twice. I can't remember if it was back when I was knew them well in the 70s. But it's it is from what I gather the phenomenon of how someone becomes a ghost. Okay, Lorraine always would say that somebody didn't, quote, pass over correctly, unquote, and that they were made earthbound. And this was a big thing it is a big thing with most paranormal types, the hobbyists especially. They're the earthbound spirit thing, and we're among the few who don't really believe in that as stated. Sure, you run into people who are, you went to their funeral the week before and then you see them walking down the street. Well, that's because, in our opinion, of a parallel world where they never died. These worlds blend all the time. They overlap, and that's why you can see people, sometimes in transparent form even. There are a lot of cases where that's happened, of people who are still alive, of people who never died in other worlds or have here, sometimes loved ones, because there's always a connection with them. And that's why you see these things. They're not the spirits or the remnants of dead people, in our opinion. Could there be such a world where there are spirits and remnants of dead? Sure, simply because you can conceive it. And quantum physics says that everything that can be conceived does exist in concrete reality, at least in the interpretation of quantum physics that we happen to ascribe to. So sure, but that's not this world, I don't think. I don't think the laws of physics in this world would permit that kind of thing. So what you're seeing, if and when you see a ghost, even if it's just a light or some kind of figure with arms, all of which I've seen, it is someone who's really, or something that is really alive in a parallel reality. Hence these parasites who seem to be able to travel between worlds like this. It's a funny concept, but this is what the interpretation of quantum physics that we ascribe to happens to say. And we believe we've seen it, not in the classroom, but in the trenches, in the paranormal realm. So the ghost syndrome, in Lorraine's definition, would be somebody who remains earthbound for the classical reasons, the unfinished business, they're mad at something, or they some other reason. And one of the big reasons that Lorraine always gave, and obviously still does, is they don't know they're dead. They won't accept the idea that they've died. Well, I just don't think that's good enough. I've never seen that kind of thing. You can often get the impression from dealing with some of these entities that that's what's going on, if that's the only thing you think could be happening. I just have never seen that. I usually find that these are just people, if you do communicate with them, not something I recommend, because I never try it deliberately. They're just people going about their daily lives. They're having problems, and sometimes they're not people at all. And sometimes you can't communicate with them because they don't speak the same language as you do. So these are all things that kind of expand the whole notion. But the ghost syndrome is, as I stated, in the classical interpretation of this stuff, somebody who has remained earthbound, or their soul or their spirit has remained earthbound. And I just don't think that makes any sense myself. So here's another one. This is one we read last night. Ben, by the way, has had to step out to do some radio type stuff here, technical stuff, so I'm taking it from here. So the shapeshifters, we read this on CBS last night, but I thought it was an extremely good question that our audience at ON here might like to hear this. So it goes, it's from, there's no name, no place, it just says, "Hi Paul and Ben, I was wondering if you know anything about shapeshifters. Do they exist? Have you seen any, and how does it work? Could Bigfoot be a shapeshifter? Many Native Americans think so." Well, I'll presume to speak for my son here. He knows something about this stuff and was on the reservation in Arizona with the Navajo, and I guess there was some talk of skinwalkers in that tradition, who are essentially, werewolves, I suppose. But again, the people who can shift into other shapes is what shapeshifter is. Sounds like a pickled peppers kind of thing, but the shapeshifter is one who can be in human form and then be in another form, this sort of thing. And it runs throughout the tradition of many, many cultures in the East and the West, Asia and Europe, I mean, and you can find this there. So has it ever occurred? Have I ever run into it? Well, the whole cryptozoology thing at times can end up in this sort of an idea. The Bigfoot thing, the alien thing, sometimes can be interpreted as a shapeshifter, because you'll see them in one form in 1 minute and then another form the next. One thing that came up was that one of the people we know who was big into the UFO field and research on aliens and has actually worked for the government was saying that there was, when some supposedly alien bodies were recovered from several UFO crashes, including the famous Roswell one, I mean, if this is accurate, that the tissue that was recovered from the bodies could be anything you wanted it to be. In other words, if a particular scientist looked at it and said, well, this is vegetable, it would have become vegetable. If they looked at it, then it would become, and it would seem to be animal or nothing they'd ever seen before, that's what it would become. And so one wonders that the body or the creature from which or from whom this tissue came might be able to metamorphose in some way in some manner of that kind. So I don't know. So I think the concept of the shapeshifter, particularly in the multiversal context, where you have even yourself different forms in different worlds and different laws of physics in different worlds, that certainly might be able to occur if worlds were overlapping. So yeah, I think that's possible. And every tradition, every bit of folklore has some grain of truth behind it, or else it wouldn't have gotten started. Somebody had some experience or some story, and that was what it was. So anyway, that's my 2 cents
just
on
about that.
What do you think about that?
What,
Shapeshifters?
Shapeshifters?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I pretty much agree with you that, I mean, if it's possible, if it's able to be imagined, then it's possible.
Yeah. Oh, we use the example of we've done the 2 on the Halloween shows, the Great Pumpkin.
Oh, yes.
You know, Charles Schultz and the Peanuts cartoons, everybody loves that. And Linus is always talking about the great pumpkin who flies through the air on Halloween and gives toys to all little children and all this business.
Oh, yes.
Well, somewhere or somewhen in the multiverse, there must be some being of sort of equal value, because Schultz would never have been able to imagine it if it didn't exist somewhere or somewhen. That's the multiverse theory we happen to ascribe to it. Whether it actually is a pumpkin is another question. And there's a matter of interpretation, too. Our eyes interpret, our minds interpret, and but the long story short, I have no problem with the whole idea of shape-shifting in certain contexts. Now, here's one. This has to do, you might find refreshing, with a show we did several months ago with Lloyd Orbach, a well-known parapsychologist and respected fellow who has the same complaint we do about films and
other
shows
things
about these ghost business, all this ghost hunting and all this stuff, that they just don't want to talk to intelligent people.
Right.
Because we've been told several times by producers that we've even done a pilot that we were too intelligent. Anyway, this is from Mark in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania.
Alrighty, so Mike writes to us. Hi, Paul. I enjoyed your interview with Lloyd Orbach, but I think you were too easy on him. Parapsychologists wonder why mainstream scientists do not take them seriously. Maybe it's because they do not take science seriously the way you do. I mean, as in quantum physics, they give it lip service, but stick it to the old tune about spirits and dead people. I think the reason for that is another point I have heard you and Ben make, that people with the Western mind can't seem to see the big picture because they only know how to take things apart instead of bringing them together. While I respect Orbach and his work, he is a typical example of that over-specialization.
Well, I think that's probably a good interpretation, Mike. We also respect Lloyd. I did not know him for many years, and then he, at the behest of 1 or 2 listeners, he was asked to be on the show, and we really hit it off. I really think he's a very intelligent and articulate fellow, and I'm sure Ben agrees.
Well, we get accused of taking it easy on a lot of people.
Well, you've accused me of taking it easy on people I like.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and you're probably right. I don't know. I don't think it's. I was once on a show, and I won't give you the name of it, but this guy, nothing I said cut any ice, and he was really rude. And I won't put up. I hate rudeness.
Yeah.
I don't sound like that ladybug in James and the Giant Peach, but I cannot abide rudeness. You treat people with respect. That's what's lacking in this society. You have respect.
That's true.
You can build on anything. You have no respect, you can't do anything.
That's very true, yes. Well, I do respect our guests, but it's like if they say something that makes me go, then it's a different story.
Yeah, I know. Oh, no, I'm not saying you sort of go along. You criticize. You can criticize, and you can
do it without being rude.
With respect.
Yes.
And and we used to do that in this country, but I don't know. So in any case, Lloyd is a respected parapsychologist. He does not have a doctorate, but he has a master's degree, and he does teach John F. Kennedy University, I believe, and he has still a lot of online stuff. And he's also he's kind of a very diversified fellow. He's a magician too, and he does this stuff, and he illusionist kind of thing. But yes. He does tend to some degree. He respects the multiverse idea, but he also accepts many other things that some of the more popular people would accept. And again, we're among the few who don't accept the idea of ghosts being spirits of dead people, right? And I think the idea about overspecialization may be a good one, Mark, as you write. One of the things we complain about is that the Western mind, when I say Western mind, I mean the way of thinking all of us have been educated and indoctrinated in, which comes from Europe and really the 18th century Enlightenment period, when people supposedly got rid of all the superstition and adopted science. The problem is that whole interpretation is based on the assumption that the universe is made of matter, and that everything that happens is the relationship between matter. And of course there's energy too, but that, it sort of is a servant of matter. And that really is not the world that the Eastern mind really comes from. The Eastern mind being Asia, India, places like that. And what the Eastern mind tends to do is bring things together to understand them. What they decided in the Enlightenment was that they had to take things apart, study all the parts, and then they could understand the whole. That's really a kind of a dumb proposition.
Yeah.
And today...
Well, if you treat everything like it's a watch, then, it's...
Well, that's exactly how they treated it. They thought that the universe was a big watch, a big mechanistic function, a big machine.
Oh, yeah.
That God had set into motion, and that if you could predict, if you could understand all the parts, like, for example, how the planets moved and why...
Oh, like Ptolemy.
More like Ptolemy. You could, because a lot of this came from ancient Greece, not necessarily Europe. Well, that's Europe, but ancient world too. And that you could really predict everything that was going to happen, and man could be on top of the world, literally, and control everything. That was the whole idea. Hence the arrogance of 19th century science, which carries over really into 20th and 21st century science too.
Well, it doesn't help that popular culture in the early 19th century and into the 20th. It was science was a novelty thing, where it was very popular to be oh hey, for example, what's his name in France in the late 1800s that came up with the N-rays or whatever, and everyone took it as gospel, but nobody could see it but French people. That's just how it was.
Yeah.
Trying to demonstrate, there was some German scientist trying to demonstrate to the Kaiser that N-rays did exist, but only French people could see it. It's things like that it was just so strange that it became the new what's the word? Fad's not a right word for it because it was
well, it's you have today's scientific law becomes tomorrow's superstition sometimes.
Yeah,
not always. And I say that with the greatest respect for honest science. And sometimes the problem isn't science; it's scientists. Because there's politics. It's all about bucks sometimes. Who gets the most grants.
Or legacy.
Or legacy, sure. And, certainly the achievements of medical science, particularly the 50s and 60s, were just, awesome. But there is a bigger picture. And when you take things apart, you can't see the bigger picture.
Right.
And the Eastern mind can. So I can see, getting back the roundabout route to Mark's point about over-specialization. They give it lip service, but...
Well, you can see it in all professions, not just this.
Yeah, not just that. So again, and maybe Lloyd is right. Maybe that perspective is correct, but I just don't think so. I have not seen that.
And neither have I.
In the last 40 years in this field, and Ben hasn't either. So anyway, thank you for your comment, Mark. Very, very well taken. We will have Lloyd back again. There are so many subjects to discuss with him, and we do recommend that you check out his books and go see him if you possibly can, and when he speaks.
And all that fun stuff.
He is in California. Okay. This is from Elizabeth from Long Beach, California.
Alrighty, so Elizabeth writes to us. Hi, Paul and Ben. I love the show and wonder if you can talk about something I have heard you say several times. That when something paranormal happens, we are actually participating in what it is. I hope I put that correctly. Could you say more about that? For example, if I see a ghost, am I empowering it? Does something inside me make it look like it does? When you had those poltergeist cases and were hit by flying objects, did you empower that somehow? Why was it you and not somebody else? If we are victims of demons or parasites, can we stop it ourselves by disengaging? Sorry to ask so many questions.
No, not at all, Elizabeth. Very, very articulate and intelligent questions. Very good questions. Hope we have time to deal with them all. If we don't,
yeah, we do.
Okay. All right. Let's start.
Maybe half of it. It depends on how long each answer is.
All right.
5 words each.
Okay. Right. With me, participating in what these things are. That's a very good question. What I mean by that is that we bring something to every experience we have. We're not just passive lumps sitting there, and we're not just observing and totally passive in it. So what we try and do is to realize that you bring your own preconceptions to this. For example, we've had several letters this evening criticizing the old-time point of view on the supernatural or the paranormal. That these are just about ghost people. Ghosts are just about dead people and this kind of thing. So that's if you bring that perspective to a paranormal experience, that very often will be what you will experience. If you have a broader view, like we try to have or believe that we have, then you see all sorts of other things that can occur. You have other perspectives on it, and you can see what we believe is a bigger picture. So in that sense, you bring that to it. You also bring energies of your own. If you are in a seriously angry or fearful state of mind, a depressed state of mind, you can bring food energy to what we call parasites, if there are other factors that allow them to manifest. This can go on without you even knowing it, or it can become very dramatic, such as the cases we discussed earlier where people were thrown across rooms and all this business that I've seen with my own eyes. So there's that aspect of it. If you bring a good point of view, a humor, love, faith, good positive energy to a scene, you can affect it also. So what you bring really depends on you and your own state of mind and what's in your heart, and so how the thing manifests, and even what you may experience can be profoundly influenced by that. For example, if you are in that state of mind and are not providing you food, you're less likely to see or experience a parasitical entity, one that's negative. If you have good things all about you, goodness in your heart, good energies, purity of intention, and you go into a situation, you may have more positive experience. It could be just as paranormal as anything else. For example, when I was working in psychiatric hospitals as a grad student and as a seminary student, and I was present at the deaths, or as we call them, the translations of people who were of good spirit, of good heart and good mind and good nature. They were very good deaths, so to speak. There were some beautiful experiences. Things have sometimes happened outside the room, in the presence of hospital staff, things of this kind. So this is what I mean when you bring something to the experience. You participate in it in that way. And again, with your preconceptions as well. So, let's see, Elizabeth goes on, I hope I put that correctly. She certainly did. Could you say more about that, which I just did? For example, if I see a ghost, am I empowering it? Now, that's a different kind of thing. You can be empowering a parasite by the food, as I say, that you are producing through your own energy. As an example, too, when I was in that house, I mentioned before, I learned the hard way that you do not get angry in the presence of these parasites because you empower them. So yes, in that sense, you can empower them, especially if it's a parasite. So how are we doing on time, Ben?
We have about 6
okay, we're
minutes?
doing well.
7
okay.
minutes? Yeah, about 7 minutes.
Does something inside me make it look like it does? Well, not everybody sees these things in the same way. One thing about, again, since we're talking about that Bridgeport case, some real high-powered parapsychologists came in from Duke University at the time, people who are still active in the field at John F. Kennedy University in California, I think particularly Keith Harari and a few other people who I corresponded with a number of years ago about this case, said that they really couldn't make head nor tail about what was going on because people had different experiences. In some cases, different memories of what happened, which I found very interesting. Particularly because this was a tiny house. This was a very small house. As a matter of fact, people who see it to this day, it's on Lindley Street in Bridgeport, were extremely astounded that all this business could go on in this little house. Well, a lot of the things happen in the presence of multiple witnesses. Other things happen in other rooms with maybe 2 witnesses or 3, and so they didn't have the same memories of the people who experienced the other things. That was one explanation. But I'm still thinking about this question 40 years later, that you've got this business going on and different people seeing different things. And I think you perhaps can see things in different ways. So that may be a possibility. And things hit by me, why was it me hit by me being hit by things in these cases? Why was it me and not somebody else? Well, I think I got the impression, despite the sterility of these things and the weird life forms that they are, that it was not entirely intentional. I was kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I don't think often that these things actually do throw things, or I think it's the energies that come along with what they bring to the experience. They come in from parallel worlds. The process of crossing these world boundaries seems to involve energies that do funny things with our space-time. So when I stood in the kitchen in that case with several police officers and firefighters and watched the refrigerator lift off the floor all by itself seemingly, turn around, put itself back down, I was probably looking at something that was caused by the process that was going on in the house, not directly by the entities. Because we always get that, oh, the ghost stole my car keys, or the ghost threw the chair, or the ghost did this. Well, probably not, maybe, but the more, I don't know, I go along.
Sometimes it's easier to blame things.
It's easier to, yeah, that's it. And it's, what's the analogy I always use? You know, running down the hallway to answer the door, and there are a bunch of papers on a desk, and you knock the papers off the desk because of the wind you create. It's simply by the passage. So I think it's very often the process, not the parasite, necessarily. So.
Yeah. Good. So
why it was me. I don't think it was any particular reason why it was me. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Although that one case in New Hampshire, Wilton, New Hampshire, when I walked into this commercial establishment and something threw a chair and hit me. Didn't hit me, but almost hit me. It was by a door, and I don't know. That almost seemed intentional, but again, you just really don't know. Why is if we are victims of demons or parasites, can we stop it ourselves by disengaging? Okay. And that's your final question, Elizabeth. Yeah, you bring in positive energy to cut off the food supply, and that's how you disengage.
Right.
So there you are.
There we go.
Okay, good. So, Ben, you wanted to mention our programs coming up this fall and what people should do.
Well, we are planning on doing some more speaking engagements within the near future, but we feel as if we both feel mutually that we need to update our program. So I figured, hey, why not ask our local listeners what they want to hear from us? Either if it's more cases or stuff, things that we don't normally talk about, or experiences that we've had in the paranormal or whatever, and then go on about that for a few hours. But we
it's usually not that long.
No, but sometimes it does if we get the audience.
Speaking a lot of libraries.
Yeah, things like that. So if you want to toss us a line, you can send the emails to Paul at behindtheparanormal.com. And you can say, hey, do you guys want to talk about this or that and that or whatever, and we'll definitely incorporate it into the program somehow. So I figured before we start planning where we're going to start speaking, might as well update what we have first, see if we like it, and then go and schedule some events.
Well, one place you will be able to hear us will be in October at the first New England UFO Conference in Leicester, Massachusetts, downtown. October 26th, Saturday. Keynote speaker will be grandfather of ufology, Stanton T. Friedman, who will be on the show, I believe, next week or the week after. I don't know, but he'll be with us real soon. And
the shows just blend together after a while.
Yeah, they do, yeah. And there'll also be UFO researchers Kathleen Martin, Peter Robbins, and others you've heard on the show. And it'll be a great. We're going to have live interviews with the speakers at the movie venue, and you'll be able to meet us there too. So it'll be a great thing. We'll tell you more about that as the time comes. So in the meantime, many thanks to our producer Ben himself this evening. Next week, July 29th, we will welcome back Stanton Friedman, just for discussions of UFOs, magic men, and mischief. So send your questions or comments now to Paul at BehindTheParanormal.com or use the handy question form at BehindTheParanormal.com.
And on our CBS edition of the show on Sunday, July 28th in Boston, Pittsburgh, Detroit, /Windsor, and Seattle and Vancouver, and on radio.com. We will welcome former Indian Army Captain Jesse Kalsi for a discussion of astronumerology.
Something we've never talked about before. Nope. Ben and I are in, of course, this documentary we've been talking about. You want to see it, just you can get it YouTube or Warner Brothers or any of those places. The Devil's Hour is the name of it. We leave you this evening with a thought from that old darling Albert Einstein. Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno, and thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you next time.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.